broker that is underwriting the transaction, you need to get with that person to make sure that you're both comfortable on what each person's role is. So, for instance, the purchase agreement probably has to be generated by the broker or the agent, and they're probably the ones who are going to request the HUD 1. But there may be some wiggle room that they can tell you that you can go and get the other stuff. Because those are not state of Texas real estate documents. Those are just mortgage documents or loan required by the lender. And so I don't know. That's it's the broker's liability. So a broker who's going to handle your short sale transaction, if they do something that's incorrect, it's his liability. So hopefully he'll know, yeah, it's fine. You can collect those, or no, I need them to come to my office and provide all these things. Either way, even if you find out that you're not supposed to do it personally unless you're licensed, you can still explain the whole process to them and let them know what to expect. And they can either start to gather their pay stubs, their tax returns, and whatever's part of that RMA form. There's a hardship letter, and I'm trying to think what else. Pay stubs, bank statements, yeah. So copies of their bank statements to verify that they don't have a bunch of money just sitting there in the bank.
Is this just for short sales, or is this for foreclosure too?
So this is just for short sales. If it's a foreclosure and you're trying to get the auction canceled, all you really need is the authorization and the purchase agreement and the buyer's proof of funds. So if it's just a foreclosure and you're trying to stop the sale, you only need those three. The rest are for short sale specific.
You don't need an agent for the short sale, or for the foreclosure?
I don't think you do. Like, you guys know I'm not an attorney, but if you're doing a private sale between a seller and a buyer, and the seller authorizes you to talk to the bank to stop the foreclosure, I feel like it might be okay. You probably should double check just to make sure. But yeah, there's not a requirement to have a broker between two private parties who are buying and selling a property. It's just that when we negotiate the loan, that's one of the new laws. Is that they make you have a license to negotiate, but you're not negotiating in that case. So my initial gut is it's probably okay, and my disclaimer is double check. Have a disclaimer.
Gavin, what was that last one that you said that was required for the
Bank statements. Buyer's proof of funds. Yeah. For just a foreclosure, buyer's proof of funds. Which could be a bank statement, or it could be an account statement from a retirement account, or it could be a loan qualification letter. The buyer's proof of funds can take lots of different forms.
Could it be a picture with you holding money?
Yeah, it could be. You gotta get your grill on and you're
Right.
having it all out there on the table. It's both a funny and a tragic story that they don't actually take cash when you buy a house. Because, in this free country we live in, it's a crime to have cash. Did you guys know that? So, I told you I wasn't going to get political. Because I don't, it's both, I'm not going to get political mostly because I don't know who's responsible for it. But I do know that if you have cash, you're automatically a suspect of criminal activities.
Exactly.
Right?
You have a bunch of $100 bills.
Yeah. So look, like I said, the fact of the matter is that's the case. I did one time try to buy a house with $30,000 in cash money. And then when I showed them the bag, first of all, $30,000 is a lot smaller than you think.
Yeah.
I mean, really. Yeah. It's like this. But you can put it in your tracksuit or whatever. But they wouldn't take it because they have to be able to source the origin of it. And if they can't prove where it came from, they just assume that I'm some kind of a criminal, right? But little did they know that I would just really like cash, and so every time I do a transaction, I take a few dollars out just so I can have for safety. But in a real transaction, like an escrow company won't take it because they don't want to get involved. So the only way, I don't even want to tell you how to buy a property with cash money, so I won't. I was about to, but I can't. I don't want to. I believe it can be done, but again, I'm not gonna do it. Quick, put tomorrow. Okay, I'll tell you how to do it. Just kidding. No, I'm really. It's because I'd like to, right? It'd be fun. I know, it would be a fun conversation, but don't do it. Take home messages. If you're gonna buy properties, have it in an account. Okay. All
You
right.
can't trade gold coins for the house?
No, it's cash. It's cash money.
Yeah, get rid of the gold coins.
You can do bitcoins, maybe.
Facebook has this money button. I can't like money Facebook.
You actually probably could, because that goes to an account. It's not paper money. Yeah. You can use lots of different forms of currency. It's the paper money in a bag they don't want.
Like my Iraqi dinar.
You have one?
It's a trillion of them.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we take that here. You have to take it down to a money changer. So now that I've completely sidelined, we think about what's going to happen next.
That was one of those times we're trying to let you gather your thoughts.
Yeah, but I already had them. Then you guys scattered. So here's what I want to do. I want to go through this a little bit here, and then I've got some other slightly peripheral stuff that is going to tie this all together. And there's going to be some pro tips, so that'll be good. So let's go through this offer process. Since I'm doing it, I can take that reminder down. So the offer process starts like this. First, I determine my ARV. That's where the whole conversation starts. So let's say I've got an ARV of 150. So crazy, 150. So I've got an ARV of 150. In order to arrive at my offer, what I need to do is I need to subtract off repairs. Actually, before I do repairs, subtract off transaction fees. Subtract off repairs. And then you subtract off profit margin. That should just about cover it. So if I talk about my 150 transaction fees to purchase the property, oh, I know what else. I need to do, I need to borrow money. So transaction fees, if I'm buying this, like again, this is a short sale scenario. So I'm going through a broker, so I've got commissions paid, and I've got, actually, let me think about this for a second. I'm reversing the polarity. Sorry, that's my fault. Because if you're buying the property, it's all part of the sale price. But when I sell the property, I take the haircut, right? If I buy it for 150, that includes the commissions. So I'll leave it like that. So I'll do repairs. So let's say I've got 20 repairs. And now for profit, personally, I shoot for a minimum of 20% of the ARV. So I'd love to get more. In some cases, I'd accept less. But when I'm building a model, I shoot for a minimum of 20% of the ARV. So that in this case would be $30,000. The cost of money. Let's talk about this for a second. So let's just say in a great case scenario, I can borrow all the money. Now, a lot of cases, you're going to be able to borrow, maybe 70, 75%. And you may have to bring in some of your own cash, or maybe bring in two different forms of money. But let's say I'm bringing in the whole amount, just for the sake of math. So, I don't know, what do you guys, do you have any providers that loan money? What do you, 12%, 15%?
3 points and 8%.
3 points and 8%? Okay, let's do that one. So in this case, it's 3 points and and 8%, I know I put 3%, that's what the point is. So 3 points of 150 is 4,500, that's that right?
Okay.
So 4,500, that's the good thing about being a real estate agent, you know 3% of anything right off the top of your head. So, and then 8%, you have to do some math.
12,000.
So 8% is
12,000.
12,000?
Yeah.
Okay, but I got to divide it. So it's $1,000 a month. I should have just been able to do that, right? Yeah, it is. $12,000 for 12 months. Yes, you know, so it's $1,000 a month. Right, that's the way interest works, is it's usually expressed per annum, per year. So it's $12,000 per year, or $1,000 a month. So if I have this in for 3 months, the cost of money is $4,500 fees plus $3,000, $7,500. It's the cost of money. And then when I go to sell it, I'm going to have transaction fees because they make me an offer. Before I get my net, I have to pay. Let's just say I have to pay a broker, and I usually figure 7.5%, which is sometimes a little high, but that covers broker's commissions, it covers title insurance, part of the escrow fee, and it kind of depends on where I am on property tax. Usually, if you've only been in the property for 3 months, your property tax liability is not huge. Of course, it depends on the situation. Anyway, so 7.5% of the ARV is 15 because the ARV is 200. Nope, 150. Sorry, everybody. I'm running 2 sets of books already. 150 times 7.5%, 11,000. So I'll just round it off to 11,000. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. Is I'm composing the offer. So that gives me. Oh, you're gonna like this. Oh boy. Whew. That gives me. What does it give me? 150. That's 100. That's 189. 182. 181. 500. All right. No, 81. 500. I can't remember it wrong. Is it 81? 500?
Yeah. 81,500.
Okay, 81,500. So this is my offer price. Now watch this. This I kind of consider this my offer price midpoint. And so if I do this math like this, and this is legit, like a real 20,000, no fluff, because I don't have to fluff myself, right? And this is my own project. Right? If I'm negotiating something, I can fluff the repairs. But this is a real deal, out of pocket 20,000. This is real. This is real. This is up for grabs. I'm shooting for this. So this is my midpoint. So in theory, if I get to this price, everything goes great, awesome. But this 30K is flexible. So I might do this math, and then that's my midpoint. And I might say, my maximum is 90,000, because that will leave everything in place. This gets dropped down to 21,000, more or less, 21,500. That's still a doable deal. So that's my M. Oh, you guys are gonna like this. MAO. Write this down and enjoy it. Sit around and let her home about it. You guys know about MAO? I think I learned it from a different. MAO is the maximum allowable offer. So whenever I go into a situation, I always know what my MAO is. And then I'm also going to start with this beginning offer that's low. So this is the midpoint.
It's like making a sandwich.
Yeah.
You gotta have mayo.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. So you got mayo, and then this is the midpoint. And so my low offer might be 70. 2,457, which is a number that literally is made up. Other than the fact that I believe that psychologically it looks like I did a lot of math to figure it out. I just made that number completely up. So what I would do in the short sale situation is I would start the short sale offer at 72,475. And then what would happen is, almost for sure, now I don't know, I've gotten some pretty good deals, but almost for sure the bank says, no, that's way too low, you're crazy. And I'm like, hey, you're crazy. You know, it goes back and forth. It's real good natured, you know, everybody's friends and everything. But then they come over, and they were in a separate calculation. They have a BPO value. See, I have an ARV that I sell. So if their BPO comes in at like, let's say that I convince them that these repairs are legit. Now watch this. You guys are like, you can like everything. I don't have to say that. I like saying it because it feels so good to tell you guys something you're going to super enjoy. So this is my real deal out of pocket, but when I'm talking to the bank, I can throw some fluff in there, right? Because how much does it cost to fix a house? It depends on who I hire, and how much materials I use, and how long it takes. So a 20,000 repair could easily be a 35,000 repair. So that's what I'm jockeying for. I've got my real number that I have to pay, and I've got the bank. And now think about it, if the bank were to hire a contractor, they'd probably have to pay a higher amount. If they were doing the work, they'd have to hire a big company that has all this overhead, and have to charge all this hourly fees. Plus, just out of principle, I'm sure they would charge the bank more just because they feel the same way we do. So this is the legitimate number. And so this is the key here. If I get them to come in and I say, look, the house might be worth close to 150, let's call it 140, and there's 35,000 in repairs. What I'm essentially doing is I'm slowly hacking down the number. So if I start at 140 and I pull out this 35, now instead of 105, then what happens is you can usually get a percentage of this amount. And they sometimes they try to be sneaky and they say, oh, I can't tell you. Depending on what type of a loan product, the maximum they're allowed to do is like, I think with an FHA it's like 88%. So if I get a 105 valuation, 88% of that is 92,400, right? So, and like I said, they don't. So this is the bank's required offer. Is there a question you mentioned?
Yeah, it's like the amount that the lowest amount out, 92,400.
Well, you know, at this point, we don't know yet. This is sort of a best case scenario opening counter. So I came in with this. They did this calculation. They got a BPO done. I sent in my list of repairs to try to influence them. They had this number, and then just by the course of experience, I know that they take a percentage of that number. I do not, and sometimes they're like trying to be coy and like we can't tell you. But I know that in some cases it's 88%. Some cases it's 82%. Sometimes I've seen people that drew an arbitrary line at 90%. So I don't really know what each bank's internal process is on a day-to-day basis. But now I've got these. So now I've got these two numbers to deal with. We have my original offer and their counter offer. So whatever I can do to bring those two together, if I can get it underneath this, I've got a good deal. Right? So this is probably pretty likely. If they're counter at 92, then I can usually come back in and just say, well, how about 87 or 89 or whatever. As long as I can get closer to them. So there's kind of this old negotiation adage, which I believe is a fallacy, but if I'm the one asking for it, then I'm doing it on purpose. You've heard about splitting the difference. It doesn't actually mean anything other than you've taken all these numbers, you've got this arbitrary $20,000 difference, and so I arbitrarily suggest we split the difference. So I could go to 82. What I would do is rather than splitting the difference, and I tell them this up front, I say, hey, listen, I'm not going to insult you by offering to split the difference. Let's go to 85. So this is a counter. And there's a chance I get that approved, or there's a chance I go back and forth one more time. So what happens? What happens if they say? What happens if they say 91,000 final offer? What do I do then? Yeah, I'd probably take it. So this MAO is just for my safety. So I don't. If I know I'm in the red zone, I have to just double check all these numbers and dial in. Careful. Everything okay? He heard I was in the red zone. He got scared. So,
I wanted to make sure you're still awake.
okay. So all this means is, yeah, I could probably still do it. I just double check and make sure everything's good. Maybe I decide to do something a little bit less expensive, or maybe I ask this guy to instead of taking a fee up front, maybe I ask him to do a set, $5 grand or $7 grand. Whatever. There's a couple things you can do, but I think that's still a deal. It's still profitable, but that's kind of how the conversation goes.
Is there a formula you use to create your fake minimum?
No, the only formula I used was it's a rough midpoint. So that's sort of how I got the ballpark. So I got 90, 80. So I just dropped it into 72. So it's a rough. The first thing is a rough midpoint. But otherwise, I just make it a weird number so it looks like I did a lot of work. But no, I could have just as easily chose 74,268, or I could have done 68,012. There's so many different weird numbers you can come up with. It's completely arbitrary.
Just don't use double zeros at the end.
Yeah.
Because that just means you're just throwing something out there.
Exactly.
Make it look like what you're saying. You look like you've done your homework.
It crushed every last number, and that's all I do for. Right?
You the other repair guy, you get like a different set of contractors come out and do some bids.
Yeah, you actually could. Sometimes, like the best thing that could happen is like a systems problem. Because if it's just cosmetic, you're not going to give it a lot of traction. But if there's a problem with the furnace, a problem with the water heater, a problem with the AC, if there's a problem with the plumbing, then it's not too difficult to get, a roto version bid that's an actual contractor bid. So yeah, definitely have one on speed dial, or you can sometimes even call them and say, hey, what would you guess for something like this? And usually they'll say, oh, I can't tell you over the phone because they want the job. And you're like, well, to be honest with you, I'm just curious. I'm not going to hire you. To be completely honest, you're not getting the job. In this case, it's less of a situation of sneakily taking advantage of people. It's better if you have a relationship with an actual contractor, that you can just say, hey, bro, what do you think, right? And so that's what I've done. I've got some bros. I mean, these are real contractors that I actually use, but with their permission, I have their letterhead and their bid, and I can take their line items and I can just boost them up by 12 to 15% to come up with a new estimate. And and they tell me that if the bank asks for this work, then that's what I'll charge them. So it's a legitimate bid, and it's on their contractor's license as far as there's no law about how much you can charge people to fix their house. I had a fence that was broken a couple years ago, and I had 3 bids. And it was like one guy was like $700, one guy was like $1,500, and the other guy was like $3,000. The same 50 feet of fence. So what do you think I did?
Nice.
I can't remember. What did I do? I actually got a 4th bid. I think I spent around $1,000 because the cheapest is not always the best. You guys know that, I'm sure. Sometimes you get what you pay for. So if you pay a guy $700, and I knew for a fact that the cost of the lumber was, somewhere in the $500 or $600 range.
Maybe he got it on a 5-figure discount.
I mean, I don't want to be part of that, but yes. Yeah, you're right. But if I know, anyway, so I don't want a guy out to build a fence if he's only making $100 because he's got to get that finished so we can go to the next project. Everybody feel okay about this process? I mean, I think to me, I feel like this has been so refreshing for you to see today.
Yes.
To get an idea, you guys feel good about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll leave it there for a second while I finish up this other topic. Because of our break, we're not going to finish right at 5 o'clock. We're going to go a few minutes past. You guys are okay with that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. Okay. So here, this is kind of the last piece. I told you at the beginning that when you leave this room, you're going to have stuff to do, right? It's cool information. You're feeling. I can tell some of you are feeling that little buzz. I'm like, okay, this is something new that I didn't think of before. Now everything's different. The opportunity is different. Your abilities are different. I can feel it. I can sense that. Maybe my phone's just on vibrate. I can tell that you guys have new skills and abilities, right? So when you leave here, you know exactly how you can start making contact with homeowners. We went through that. So you guys are going to be in the game right away. This is the piece that a lot of people are still trying to put together. So I want to show you a couple things on how to get financing for your deals. So first of all, is there anyone here who has money, either in a retirement account or in some form, that you're interested in, your own money that you're investing in real estate? Any of you here? So you've got some? You've got some? So I don't want to speak for these two. Jake, right?
Yeah.
Jake and Jared. I don't speak for these two, but if you found a killer deal, then you might want to show it to them and see if they're interested. That's possible. Again, no obligation. They don't have to. But that means the rest of you are going to be looking for some money to use. So here's the big five, so to speak. So personal money is money that you have access to. It's your own cash. Then there's private money, and I distinguish between private money and hard money. And again, these are my definitions. There's gray area. I mean, it's not like a legal definition. So private money is people that you know personally, with a friend, a relative, an acquaintance, somebody you talk to face to face, and on a personal level, they agree to make a loan to you, whether they're your partner or whether they just make a loan. That's a private money situation. Hard money is an entity that's their business model. They make real estate loans. And so that exists somewhere in between private money and traditional lending. So like a traditional mortgage, if you have good credit and you have a good income and you have whatever reserves they need, you could buy about 4 or 5 houses in your own personal name as investments. I don't know exactly if there's a limit anymore. I know that it used to be. They used to say you could buy 4 investments. So that's a traditional mortgage. You show them your credit score, you show them your bank statements, and you qualify for a mortgage. That's great if you're doing a 30-year long-term fix or long-term hold. Those loans don't work for fix and flips because they want to leave the money in place for at least 5 or 6 years. It does exist as a possibility. But the hard money lender is something that exists in between that, whereas it's a business, they make loans because that's their job, but they make real estate asset-based loans. So they're custom built for what we're doing. They want to make loans on real estate. They don't care about your credit usually. They may ask just to know who they're working with, but it's not based on your credit. It's not based on your income. It's based on the value of the project. So if you can demonstrate, here's a great project, would you like to make a loan? They might say yes. So that's hard money. And then IRA investing, you guys have heard about it as well. So that sort of falls under either personal or private because it's somebody who has those funds, but they're already parked in a retirement vehicle. So you might either be able to teach them or show them how they can put that into into a real estate project. So here's what I want to show you guys. I want to show you, again, this hypothetical situation where I show up, I've got to buy a house in the next 30 days in this area. What would I do? I would get on the internet. I would type in this from McKinney, McKinney, right? McKinney, Texas, real estate loans. Let's see what happens. So I got real estate loans, non-owner occupied, so that's an investment. Quicken loans is probably what we're looking for. Wildcat lending, property investment loans. Flipping a house, we can help. Let's click on that one. Does anyone know Wildcat lending? No? Okay. Let's just click on it and see. Wildcat lending is a leading private money lender in North Texas area. Fast, reasonable, secure real estate loans, and maybe to close quickly residential property investments. Huh, interesting. Criteria, so up here, criteria.
That's actually hard.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I tell you guys that there's this gray area between terminology. So when I say private money, I'm talking about a friend or a family member. But these people consider themselves a private lender, and you know why they do that? Because usually, what these folks are is it's a consortium of investors, right? So if the shoe was on the other foot, if you had $100,000 in your IRA account, but you don't want to go look for properties and you don't know anybody, you connect with somebody like I already forgot the name of it. Wildcat? Yeah. You connect with somebody like Wildcat Lending and you can place your money with them, and then that's what they do. They loan it out. Usually they promise you a fixed return. So they're probably promising these guys anywhere from 6, 7, 8% return on the money. In fact, I don't know. Sometimes they have a different page where they're soliciting for more investors. But in this case, you're looking at, let's look at the loan terms. So you've got the loan of 70% of the ARV. 70% of the ARV or 90% of the cost. So the cost is the purchase price plus the renovation budget, or the lesser of the two. So you probably need to run both numbers. So in this case, 70% of the ARV is, I don't know, something. So that'd give you 105, which is great, because if you get 105,000 for then, now you only have to come up with, what would you have to come up with? Well, hold on, I gotta do both numbers. So it's the lesser of the two. 70% of the ARV is 105. 90% of the cost is the purchase price plus renovation. So the purchase price, let's say it's 91, and the renovation is 20. So I've got 91 plus 20, so that's 111. So if I presented this deal to them, and they ran the numbers, they would either loan me 105 or 111. It says the lesser of the two, so 105.
90% of 111.
90%, good point. Yeah. So 90% of that was 99. Or 90, almost 100,000, 99. But either way, so now we're talking about bringing in, so in this case, you can acquire the property and have, let's see, it's 90% of the acquisition plus the rehab. So you acquire 91, you've got $8,000 towards rehab. So I would need to come up with the balance of the money towards your rehab. Right? Does that suddenly feel a little bit more approachable? And this was just the first one I clicked on. These guys are doing 6-month terms, no prepayment penalty. So if I borrow the money for 6 months and I use it for 3 months, I can send it back and only pay for the time that I used it. They're charging 3 points, 12%. They do charge a fee. So all of these are fairly acceptable. I wouldn't just call these up. I wouldn't just call these guys off the internet and send in my application fee. I would try to meet with them and chat with them and kind of get a feel for whether or not it's a good fit. I will tell you that some private lenders don't have these fees. Let's maybe look at another one. I just kind of want to get you the idea of, if you sat down on a Monday morning and I said, before you leave, wherever it is that you're sitting, go, you need to find 5 lenders. So here I've got your key mortgage lenders.
John Kim,
Yes, sir.
where are you getting the 3% aid?
Sherman Bridge Lending.
Okay, is that somewhere local here?
Yeah, they're a hard money lender.
Sherman Bridge Lending. There it is, bridge loans at 8.99%. Easy 30-second loan calculation.
Yeah, they, for more savvy investors, they'll give you a break, but I don't get that break.
So if you're this is important to know. If you're sub 600, you can't get the loan. It won't let me proceed, but it's a lot to do on the computer. So. Okay, so that's Sherman Bridge loans. Look at others. So let's do Frisco just for fun. Frisco.
Echo Concepts is another one I'm looking at. They do, I forget their.
Here, I got somebody that's awesome.
Frisco private money or Frisco hard money? Private money?
So I just want to see what was different. So if I put in private money,
ATXprivatemoney.com.
what was it?
ATXprivatemoney.com.
Okay.
Look at this guy's business card. Straight metal.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Oh, nice.
That's somebody with this guy.
ATX.
I'm pretty sure that's why you gave one
That's
that.
a cool good card.
Well, yeah, cool. So let's look at this other one just for comparison's sake. So this one is Visio Lending. VISIO Financial Services. It says rates below 6.5, LTVs up to 75 on private money loans for real estate investors. If you're buying another property to rent out or wants to take cash out of an existing property, wants to check rates before talking. It's a dead link, so I don't know. I don't want it completely expensive, but let's see, I can see more. Here's that one. ACX.
I have so many responses.
I can spend hours just clicking through these pages, right? So the point I'm making is there's a ton of money available, and there's a lot of variability between how much they're charging, how much they're willing to loan. And so if I had 3 different resources, then when I do this, I can plug in 3 different costs, and I may still decide to use this one because honestly, 3%, 3 points and 8% is pretty good. I mean, I personally pay 3 points. I'm not hold on, what do I pay? I pay either 2 or 3 points and 12%. Part of it is because these are people that I consider partners, so I want to kind of increase their problems enough to where they want to keep loaning a lot of money to me. Of course, it always has to fit within the transaction. But I also know people that want to do long-term holds that are willing to loan money at like 8%. And so that's a different type of transaction than what we've done here. But the point is that there's so many different variables. But that's one of the other things. So I told you when you leave here, you've got action items. So here's your action items. You know how to find the list of pre-foreclosures. You know how to, at the very least, you know how to start getting access. It showed you how to just Google their name and address and find their phone number. And then you can also send out your direct mail, your signs. And then at the same time, you should research these private money. So it's not enough to just look at all these websites. That's step 1. Step 1 is to look at all the websites. Step 2 is to call a few and actually talk to them. Now, you're not going to get too far without having an actual property, because I can tell you this. There's a lot of real estate investors who really want to be real estate investors who never do a deal. Hopefully that's not you guys. I don't know yet. But they get calls all day long from, hey, I'd love to be a real estate investor. What are your fees? How much you charge? You guys make loans? And so I learned this through an interesting experience. So I did this when I first started. And so I called a bunch of local, similar to this, except for I don't think they had Google back then. What do you think? Did they have Google? I might have had to ask Jeeves. You guys remember that? But in any case, when I would leave a message for somebody to say, hi, I'm a new investor, I'd like to borrow some money, can we talk about your terms? I'd almost never get a call back. When I call and say, hi, I've got a property under contract, it's for this dollar amount, and I wonder if I can get a loan, how fast can I get it? Then I get a call back. Because they want to make a loan, they don't want to just chit chat, right? So you can be aware of that. If you catch somebody live on the phone, you can probably chat with them for a minute or two and get a feel for their, their process, their application process, their fees. In fact, you can write this down. This is what you should ask. What do they charge? Fees and interest? What are their terms? Short-term, long-term, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? And then what's their application process? So if you have a spreadsheet or you keep a file or whatever, then you have all your lenders that you talk to, you have that information available. Then, like I said, you can plug these numbers in with different lenders to run the numbers. And a lot of times you're still going to have to figure out an alternate source. So you may have to bring in a private lender to do, like in this case, if I don't have any of my own money, I can borrow $99,000. I can buy the house, and I can do $9,000 towards repairs, but I need to find another $11,000 at least. So you can either bring in a private lender, you can use a credit card. There's lots of different things. If you narrow down your problem to, I've got to find $11,000 so I can make $30,000. I feel like you got a good chance of scrapping and making that work. So, but it's not going to just happen. You've got to take the time to scroll through all the pages, to make a list of what people are charging, to talk to people about their retirement account, or who's, what other people are out there that have money that want to invest in real estate. It's kind of an ongoing process. I mean, even today, like the almost 13 years that I've been doing this, I still look for new lenders because I've got people that I used to use who either don't do it anymore because they're retired. When I first started, there's a few old guys who, they were really into it now. And then the last few years, I keep trying to call them. They'd be on vacation for 2 months, or they don't do it anymore. So I keep having to add new people to my list. And that's the same with you. Even if you have a few, you should keep looking for more, right? So that's your financing. So your takeaways are things you can start with right away, looking for pre-foreclosures, and developing your list of private money. So I think those are your walk-away orders. Let me see if I got some pro tips. But let me just finish with this. So these are your last pro tips on working these foreclosure leads. Keep track of where you're on the foreclosure timeline. So if somebody's just in the default phase and maybe they called off one of your ads, there's no foreclosure date set, then great. But you still want to keep appraised of the fact that at some point they are going to be in foreclosure. So if you're already working with the bank, usually they'll tell you, but you want the homeowner to let you know if you ever get a posting, if you notice a certified letter. Let me know if your foreclosure status changes. If there's a date set, then you need to keep that in mind and or get some kind of confirmation that they postponed it. Number 2 pro tip, position yourself as a helpful resource. When I sit down and give people the 8 options in avoiding foreclosure, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to just shrug and say, well, what do you think? And they say, I guess I need to sell the house. So as much as I try to guide the conversation, I can't trick somebody into selling the house. I've never really tried to, but I don't think I could. All I do is I tell people what their options are, and I kind of get them to agree which one may not work, and I'm just trying to help. If they can get them better without me, then I wish them well. And that's, maybe the case that they have another option. Third pro tip is related to that. Give the homeowner their options and let them choose. If they're the ones who say, yes, I guess I better sell, it was their decision. I didn't trick them. I didn't convince them. I didn't take a good option off the table. They chose. And as soon as they choose, they get more cooperative. So if I come in and say, you have to sell your house, they may eventually agree and come around. But if I come and have a conversation and they say, I need to sell my house, then the energy is different. They're much more cooperative, getting all the documents they need to get to you. The fourth pro tip is kind of related to this situation here, which is to know your exit strategy before you get into the deal. Now listen, you might have 2 or 3 possible exits. So we talked about a scenario where if the ARV and the loan amount is real close, it might be a short sale or it might be subject to. So it's certainly fine if you have 2 exit strategies or 3 exit strategies, but you got to quantify each one. That way, when you get to the end of the conversation, you know what you want to do too. Because it's not just helping people is great. Helping people while you get paid is fantastic. So I think you need to be crystal clear on where's your money coming from too. And then the last pro tip is to pay attention to your financing, because if you get all the way through this process and there's nobody to make the loan, then that's a lot of effort and a lot of sad feelings in your heart when you're not able to actually culminate the deal. And I gotta admit that a couple times early on, when I maybe had 1 or 2 funding partners, but I was trying to do 4 or 5 deals at a time, that I had great deals on the table, but I couldn't finish because I didn't have money. So, I guess it's a good problem to have if you got a couple of deals already going. But that's something you always work on, is getting more lenders.
So you would wait until you had a deal to talk to these guys?
I would break it into 2 conversations. I would have a preliminary conversation that would sound like, hi, and first of all, don't leave a message. But if I talk to somebody live on the phone, I'd say, hi, listen, I'm kind of new, but I'm planning to do some deals. Could you just tell me briefly, what are your rates and fees, what kind of terms, length of loans, and what's your application process? And then I'll call you when I have a deal. So that's usually a fair trade-off. Any more detailed than that, and they start to feel like you're monopolizing the time. But I would do that first. Now I've got a list of people that I want to try. When I do have a deal, I can choose from the list who I want to look at first.
And then they say, oh, just fill out the application on the site. So that will give you dings on your hard inquiries on your credit.
Usually not on something like this. You should ask if that's what they do. But a lot of times, like with private money or hard money, they want to know what your credit is because they just want to know who they're dealing with. They may or may not actually be pulling your score. You might be able to provide it to them from one of the self-pulling credit reports once a year. If you have that, you can provide to them. That might be sufficient. If you just sit there and put in your application online without having to talk to anybody, then there's a chance they'll pull your credit. So you want to make sure are they going to do that or not. My guess is that a lot of them won't. If there's another way they can verify your scores. So I think. So I did want to just take a couple minutes to tell you about this. You guys are aware of this already. I don't know if I'm not an attorney. I'm not the CPA, but I am a coach. And so for those of you who are in the Extreme Plus or Extreme Plus combo, you get free coaching sessions. It's not free. You pay for coaching sessions, and here's how you schedule it. So it's renatuscoaching.com is my schedule. So it's just, it literally is not a fancy website. It's just you go on, you click schedule a time, it shows when I'm available, and you choose a time, and then I call you. Question or comment?
We have a few individuals who are so new that may not be exposed to what Extreme Plus combo means.
Okay. Do you want to cover that? Just let me finish this, and you can do terminology for folks that are a little newer. So, but I know there's some folks that maybe are not combo or extreme. Isn't extreme combo extreme plus? Yeah. So every week on Tuesday, Here's my email address. Every week on Tuesday, I do a webinar where I cover a topic and I take questions. And so if you are enrolled at the Essentials, you should have already been given that link. But for some reason, some people didn't register for that webinar. So if you want to come to that webinar, email me and I'll send you the link to register. So it's coach@myrenatus.com. And then, any last questions?
Any questions while you have Gavin in Texas? He flew from Idaho. Idaho.
It does feel like we've done a lot of really good things. And with technology, I can certainly answer your questions remotely at any time.
Oh, Gavin, if I come across a deal and I want to work with you to negotiate.
You have to have a Street Plus comment to be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said. And so once you do that, you'll learn the process of submitting deals.
On Tuesday training,
No recordings for the Tuesday webinars. It's just live stream of consciousness. It's usually pretty good, but yeah, it's just one and done and no recordings.
Question.
Yeah.
About that.
Okay.
In the past, we did do a recording of the webinar on Tuesday, and then erased the following Tuesday when you did the next slide.
Oh,
Is that not happening anymore?
I've never done that. That's a good idea.
That way, those people that can't get on Tuesday 9 o'clock or Tuesday 8 o'clock, whatever, the recording lasted until next Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
That was something that was going on. I don't know if you're doing that or if Jay does that.
Well, I know how to record it, but I don't know how to change the website, so I'll have to ask them if they want us to do that. But as of right now, no recordings. Oops.
Any more?
6 sessions, 1 hour.
Oh yeah, so it's 6 30-minute sessions. Yeah. And when we get on our first conversation, obviously I'll figure out where you are, what you're doing, what your action items are. And then from there, we'll sketch out how the next 5 sessions will go. Usually it's customized for however much, if you have a lot of assignments to do, we may not talk for 2 weeks. Or if you're in the middle of a deal, sometimes I talk to somebody on Monday, I talk again on Thursday. So it really just depends on each individual. So the first session is strategizing and giving you some things to work on, and then we'll sketch out the rest of the calls. Anything else? Yeah.
Sean had asked before about like a few things that first contact with short sale lead. What is that first phone call like? What are some of the questions that you ask?
Okay. Yeah, good. So let's say it's an incoming call, you put out a sign and there's, hey, I want to sell my house. So I'll just give you a few real quick things that you can, and I think this will be extremely applicable. So first of all, you should just always get in this habit of this core information that you need. So that core information is, obviously you need to know who you're speaking with. So their name, if they got caller ID, of course you got the number you want to confirm, is this the best number to call you back, and then the property address. So here's how I would handle that call. I would say, oh yeah, what's your name? And is this the best number for you? Which property are we talking about? What's your situation? So that's really the big question. What's your situation? If you remember that, you can get the conversation started.
You don't try to do any small talk or any, what do they call it, building rapport.
Rapport
Small talk isn't building rapport. Small talk is stepping out of rapport and offending the reason you're calling.
Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better term, small talk is avoiding the question. So what's your situation?
Weak salespeople do small talk.
And then let them talk. So however long they're talking, they're probably going to hit some of the high points. Oh, I need to sell my house, or I can't afford the payments, or whatever. So after you hear a little bit about the situation, what I usually say is, I think I can help. So if they didn't already cover it, I may ask, specifics about foreclosure status. You know if there's a sale date set, or have they already filed foreclosure? And then are there any repairs? How much do you owe?
Is that just how you say it? How much do you owe?
Yeah. And about how much do you owe on the loan? That's how I say it. And then the last thing is, I'm going to be able to write this out. But the last thing is, from what you said, it sounds like we could probably work together, but I won't know until I come out and see the house. When's the best time? And I don't even really need all this. If I know their situation and I can tell that they need somebody that can help, I could theoretically skip right to, yeah, it sounds like I can help, but I won't know unless I come and see the house. What time works for you? What can I come over? But if you're sitting at your desk and you have something to take notes with and you're not rushed, if you can get these, if you get this idea about repairs and how much they owe, if I can go into the first meeting knowing how much they owe and about what repairs we need, and I've already done my calculation of the ARV, I can almost make an offer right on the spot. So that's why I would do that. Now, I'll give you one last ace in the hole, so to speak.
Yeah.
And this is, question. Yeah.
So, but going to that meeting, you can, how would you verify what they would?
Yeah. So at this point, it just take them at their word, and as part of the contract or as part of your conversation, just say, hey, this is all subject to verification. Yeah, because if they're completely off, and you call them and you say, hey, you were completely off, I mean, everyone just shrugs and says sorry, right? Unless they're purposely trying to trick you, which they may or may not be doing on this first call. Yeah, look, everything you do, every offer is just subject to verification. The last little ace in the hole is so this is great for you, but what if they ask you a question that you don't know the answer? What if they ask you, how much can you pay for my house? Who are you? What do you do? How do you have all this money? Because you say we buy houses. What are you doing? Look at this guy. His big faces. So if they ask me literally any question outside the scope of this, I mean, short of what's your name and how can I reach you, I mean, obviously I'm not going to be completely robotic. But any other question that's outside the scope of this, I say, yeah, that's a great question. That's definitely something we'll have to cover. But right now, my job is just to find people who need to sell their house. And so when I come over and meet with you, we can certainly cover all your questions. But at this point, I think the scope of the phone conversation is over. And that's maybe a little more harsh than I would say it. But the part about that's a great question, and you definitely need to get an answer to it. And at this point, we'll have to cover it when we meet in person. It's a great way for you to segue out of any corners and to try to get you in the corner with a question you don't know the answer to. The other thing is, do not be afraid to admit that you don't know. So what I would say, if they ask me a question that I don't know, I say, that's a great question. I'd have to ask my partner about it. And so I'll get you the answer, but I got to talk to my partner first. And who's your partner? It's either your coach, John Ferguson, somebody else in this room, somebody that you need to deal with. Anybody that you need to ask to get the answer is your partner in the scope of that conversation. So that's another get out of jail free card is, I honestly don't know the answer. I'll have to ask my partner. My job right now is to find people who need to sell their house. It sounds like you might, so let's meet and we'll talk about all your questions.
Would you recommend those objections later, or do you just never bring it up?
Well, later when I actually go meet with them in person, if they have more questions, then that's what we will cover. I don't want to spend all day on the phone.
No, that's true.
Yeah. I want to get in their house face to face because that's where the relationship happens.
Yeah, at this point, who all is involved in this process, would it make a difference when you, let's say the husband called and you want to know if there's anybody else involved in this process, or that doesn't matter?
I don't think at this point it matters. I mean, when you go to the house, you can find out, if there's another person on title or whatnot. Before you put anything in writing, you would need to do that. But I'd be glad to go and meet with somebody at their house, and even if it turns out that they're bluffing or whatever. It so rarely happens. Obviously only one person can call, husband or wife. But I wouldn't worry about it this point. Only when I start to put paperwork together.
So you can't state right off the bat, was it good or bad? You know, I'm an investor, I work with investors, and my job, like you said, my job is to find houses, but to say it right out front. If someone called, it's a good world, so someone calls me on the phone and won't say what they do, I don't.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell are you doing?
No, that's fine. Yeah, you can say you're an investor, sure. Yeah, but like if they're trying to get real specific about how do you have all this money to buy all this house? No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm an investor. I work with investors. We buy houses. That's just what we do. So something like that.
Yeah,
Right.
So we were to open phone, so that's the same question.
I think so. Yeah. So on one of these ones where we pull up the address or we pull up the phone number on the web pages, we call them up. Hey, is this Robert? I'm a real estate investor. I saw your name listed on the foreclosure list, and I'd really like to see if I can help. I wonder if you can tell me what's your situation. You can kind of go through this. People are varying levels of responsive to that, but that's a great approach. Yeah. Yes.
And building rapport is important too. What he's talking about is you're getting straight to the point. You're not moving around with, hey, do you like dogs? I got dogs too. You can do it, right? So, to that point, David also and I and Gavin were doing a short sale in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The owner, we backed off that project because the short sale was denied by the bank because the guy got he accepted a promotion. And so they found that he has the money now to pay the mortgage, right, to pay the payments. The home is not foreclosed. And the guy called us back last week asking if we could help him with a short sale. So it's something to revisit. But if you don't build the right rapport, they don't believe that you're the expert, the authority, you're never going to get that phone call back, right? So it's been like 3 or 4 months, and he still hasn't been foreclosed on, and he still hasn't made a single payment on the house. So again, those opportunities will stay around. Like the property Gavin and I did over a 2-year period of time in California, same thing. That never would have happened if I broke that level of rapport and trust that I built, for the first 2 years trying to work out a jumbo note, and then trying to do a short sale after with Gavin. Right? So you keep that rapport by being the expert, staying on point, meaning here's our goal, here's what we can do for you, here's what our solutions are, and then you stick to that, the plan, right? You build a relationship over time of other things, right, as you go along. But other than that, you stay on point so they trust you're the right person for the job, you're not BSing through the process.
But what if they like to talk about other stuff?
Let them speak, you don't talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, great. If they're talking and like when you say, what's your situation? If it's a 15-minute monologue, just take it in.
I went to a house last week, and his kid was a great soccer star or something. And I was like, oh yeah, my kid loves soccer too.
Landline.
Landline?
What's it, landline?
Landline?
Southern foot?
What do you mean?
Well, it's just that
Cold
first,
expression.
yeah, it's the first, the main purpose of the conversation. I mean, what I would do in this case, if I just couldn't keep from bursting with pride about my kids, I get. I would do all this first, and then maybe on your way out, hey, I noticed your kid has a soccer trophy, and we play over here, and it's really fun. But if it's before the business, it's detracting.
I was gonna say, Wayne ran into that problem with individual, his property, he said the individual driving trucks or whatnot, so once he went to the property, he said, he said the guy just went on and on and on, but he was able to use his experience in life, obviously when he's been there a while now.
He was a retired trucker.
So he was able to relate to him, but he still got the job. So exactly what John was saying. You don't want to small talk, but if you're able to relate to somebody and still drive to the focus of what they're actually saying, then by all means do it. Every situation is different. So just take it by each situation.
I feel like it might cross the line of being like a friend or
Yeah.
rather than like
Yeah. Well, plus it's a little, it makes them a little skeptical because that's a classic old school sales technique. It's look at the pictures and be like, oh, you play tennis, I love tennis. That sounds, it sounds phony and or made up, and or we want to be a professional advisor, not a buddy. So I think there's lots of different reasons why you should. But like I said, at the very end, after you conduct the business, it's not like it's a bad thing to do. It's just not productive, and I think it increases your authority. Anything else? We good? John, you want to take a minute and talk about this microphone? Or just turn it on?
Nah, I'm loud enough. Give him a hand. Good stuff. Awesome stuff, right? Brains fried. It's like right there on the edge. You got so much in there, like new cells were born, right? Some of you. Good stuff. So, as far as back to some of the comments, right? No friendship or business. Really, what it is you can say no to a friend, right? If you go to a relationship, it's very easy that way. So, be that expert, support your people, be a professional, and maintain that rapport in that authority, right? So it's a line of process. So I also wanted to play to the point David made as far as partnering with any of our educators, partnering with anyone from Renatus. It's been a long-standing rule that Bob Snyder has, just for the sake of making sure you have the right context, that you're understanding the process, because all the education keeps that. You're going to partner on a short sale or a fix and flip. Make sure you have your AITs, right? So you have the training. And Brian Sunk, he will not partner with anyone on a short sale unless you have an extreme close copy. Santos Kid, he cannot help you with loan modification. It's actually in his contract unless you have AITs. So to answer your question there, you leverage the tools you have, the team, the partnerships you have here locally, and then obviously you can get those deals done, right? It's like Chris is working with me to do the short sale. Who's my business partner? Gavin. That makes sense? So that's I guess you call it workarounds, but Bob feels more comfortable that way rather than anything. So, was it a good day?
Yeah.
Awesome. You guys enjoyed the day? Good enough context?
Yeah.
Should Gavin come back out again?
Yes. Awesome.
All right.
Got some more meat to eat out here.
Yeah, that's right. We got a lot more. Good. So this coming Thursday, we've got our study group. So this week, Thursday. Tuesdays, I would encourage everybody who has not yet taken advantage of Gavin's calls on Tuesdays. Those are 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. every single Tuesday. It's not just a call, it's a webinar, right? You follow the webinar or no?
Yeah, it's a webinar. There's PowerPoints and conversation, and they can put in questions and stuff.
Yeah, so I take advantage of that every single week. So you get your questions answered if you're not getting an answer here, or it's too short a time. But Thursday, 8:30, we'll be back here for study group. Other than that, thanks everybody for coming out, participating, coming out, spending time with us at Chris's house. Thank you, Chris, for letting us go in and break down the door. Ned, thank you for bringing the tools and removing the door handles on 2 doors to get us in there. And for Brian, packing heat. Keep us all safe with those guns, right? Yeah, right on. So, if there are any more questions, let's all get,
recording. Where is they going to be?
So, Gavin, for the context he covered here, he's going to record that in the studio of Renatus, and that'll come back to anyone with an AIT education. What we have for our team, our group, that'll come to you in an email. There'll be a link, and there'll be an individual login that you'll receive. So we'll know, obviously, if it's shared to someone's sister's cousin's brother, but there'll be a login you'll have individually to get in, and it'll be individual login. It'll track the IP address as well as email, as well as the login you receive. So there's 3 tracking. So make sure that you obviously keep that to yourself, because that gets out to be lots of issues.
Next week, next month.
Make sure we look out for it.
What's that?
When should we look out for the email?
Oh, the email, a couple of days. Yeah, it should be developed in a couple of days. It's all of it will be hosted on website, Real Real Estate Investors, and then you'll have a login password to meet the clients. That's anybody who was registered, right? Who came, whether they were here or not, right? So we have a couple people who weren't able to make it, like Charlie Fireman. He wasn't able to show up, but he'll get access to the video. Any other questions? Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys would have just been listening to me like you always do. Gavin didn't agree to come down, so yeah. Oh, cool. So some of us are going to hit up the Korean barbecue spot in Plano. I've got reservations for room for 12 if you guys want some Korean barbecue. I don't know if you're into that stuff, but it's phenomenal. Going to a place called Jin in Plano. So you'll want to come out. We've got some room. So Top of Avenue K in Plano. 75, and you take Parker up to Avenue K. It's right there. So, it's a lot of meat. Everything like sliced, cooked by you.
It's really good though.
Yeah, it's good. And it's all you can eat. So it's all you can eat. You know, raw pork. All right, guys. That's it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
See you.